In the early hours of July 3, 1969, tragedy struck. Brian Jones was discovered dead at the bottom of his swimming pool, his body lifeless, the waters reflecting the early morning light. The circumstances were immediately suspicious. Some claimed it was a simple accident. Others whispered of foul play, citing his troubled relationships, rivalries, and volatile lifestyle. Conflicting reports from witnesses only fueled the speculation. Who could have wanted him dead? Was it the inevitable consequence of his lifestyle, or did darker forces play a role? Even in death, the aura of mystery surrounding Brian Jones intensified. Journalists, fans, and fellow musicians debated endlessly over the details of his final moments. Theories ranged from accidental drowning to deliberate malice, with many convinced that the enigmatic musician's life had always been destined for a tragic, untimely end. His death, like his life, became a story of contrasts, brilliance and chaos, creativity and self-destruction, genius and vulnerability. Posthumously, Jones's influence only grew. Musicians studied his recordings, dissected his techniques, and marveled at the depth of his innovation. His use of unconventional instruments, layered textures, and haunting melodies inspired generations. Yet, alongside admiration, there remained a lingering sense of tragedy, a reminder that talent, when combined with personal demons and external pressures, can be both luminous and perilous. The story of Brian Jones solidified the archetype of the 27 Club, extraordinary artists whose lives ended abruptly, leaving behind legends that intertwine mystery, brilliance, and cautionary lessons. His death remains one of rock's most enigmatic tales, a narrative woven with suspense, unanswered questions, and the haunting resonance of a life that burned brightly but too briefly. Even today, visitors to his former home and the surrounding Sussex countryside claim to feel echoes of his presence. Some hear faint guitar notes drifting on the wind, while others report fleeting glimpses of a shadowy figure near the pool. Brian Jones's story is a testament to the fragility of life, the perilous allure of fame, and the enduring mystery of the 27 Club, a legend that continues to captivate, inspire, and haunt generations. As the summer of 1969 pressed on, Brian Jones became increasingly unpredictable. Friends and acquaintances often spoke of his sudden disappearances, wandering the Sussex countryside at odd hours, seemingly drawn to the edge of forests or along riverbanks as if seeking something unseen. At night, he would sometimes sit by the water's edge, guitar in hand, plucking chords that seemed to echo from another realm. Those who witnessed these moments described a strange energy in the air, a mix of brilliance, melancholy, and unease. That was uniquely Brian. His relationships continued to be turbulent. Former lovers, friends, and colleagues noticed his oscillation between charm and intense brooding. Some evenings, he could charm a room, laughing and joking, the life of any gathering. Yet just as suddenly, he would retreat into silence, eyes fixed on distant shadows, murmuring cryptic lines from poems or fragments of melodies only he seemed to understand. The duality of his nature, the magnetic charisma and the lurking darkness, made him simultaneously irresistible and unsettling. Even among fellow musicians, Jones stood apart. His obsession with music extended beyond conventional creativity. He was constantly experimenting with instruments from around the world, from sitars to dulcimers, adding layers to his compositions that most could barely comprehend. Studio sessions often became nights of feverish creation, filled with frustration, brilliance, and bursts of inspiration. Some engineers reported equipment failing inexplicably during his recording attempts, while others claimed a sense of foreboding in the rooms he occupied, an intangible presence that seemed to hover near him, waiting Whispers of danger began circulating more persistently. Some speculated that Jones had made enemies, either through rivalry, jealousy, or disputes over music rights. Others suggested that his substance use had made him vulnerable, clouding judgment and inviting risk. Yet another layer of speculation arose from his fascination with mysticism and esoteric practices. He seemed drawn to symbols, rituals, and obscure texts, as though attempting to decode a destiny that eluded him, seeking knowledge that might explain or protect him from forces he barely understood. In the days leading up to July 3, 1969, Jones's energy grew erratic. He was seen moving between his Sussex estate and London with increasing urgency, meeting with friends, musicians, and strangers alike. Observers reported that he spoke of fate, inevitability, and a sense of being watched. At times, he seemed almost clairvoyant, predicting events or sensing the mood of a room before others could. His behavior, while fascinating, unnerved those closest to him. The line between genius and obsession, between inspiration and impending tragedy, appeared thinner than ever. And then came that fateful night. Brian Jones was discovered lifeless at the bottom of his swimming pool, his 27 years marked by both brilliance and chaos. The circumstances of his death remain unresolved to this day. Was it a tragic accident brought on by a life of excess? Or did hidden forces conspire, whether human or otherwise, to claim a life that burned too brightly? Speculation and conspiracy theories persist. Some claim foul play by jealous rivals. Others attribute it to his unstable lifestyle, while a few whisper that the universe itself demanded a reckoning for his genius. Brian Jones's death marked a chilling point in the narrative of the 27 Club. He became both a cautionary tale and a legend. His musical innovations, from his pioneering use of exotic instruments to his unique compositional style, continue to influence artists across genres. Yet his story also underscores the perilous intersection of talent, fame, and personal demons, a pattern that would recur in the lives of future members of the 27 Club. Even decades later, the shadow of Brian Jones lingers over Sussex. Some claim that when the wind stirs the trees near his former home, faint guitar notes drift on the breeze, as if he is still playing, warning, or whispering secrets. Others report fleeting glimpses of a figure near the water's edge, moving silently, vanishing when approached. Brian Jones's life and death remain a haunting testament to the price of genius, the allure of fame, and the enduring mystery of the 27 Club, a legacy as mesmerizing as it is tragic. The streets of Seattle in the 1940s and 50s were alive with rhythm, whispers, and opportunities hidden between poverty and struggle, a city that seemed indifferent to those born without privilege. Into this world came Johnny Allen Hendrix, later to be reborn as Jimi Hendrix, a boy whose life would become legend. Born in 1942 to Al Hendrix and Lucille Jeter, his early years were marked by instability, poverty, the absence of his mother, and the challenges of a tumultuous household shaped his consciousness. From the very start, music seemed less a hobby and more a lifeline, a language through which he could navigate the complexities of existence. As a child, Jim's first encounters with a guitar were awkward, clumsy, and uncertain. Yet, even in the fumbling notes of his earliest attempts, there was a spark, a flicker of something extraordinary. While other children played games or wandered streets aimlessly, he would strum borrowed guitars, experimenting with tones, rhythms, and melodies. He could hear music differently, intuitively blending rhythm and soul into sounds that would eventually mesmerize the world. It was as if the very vibrations of the strings spoke to him, resonating with a depth beyond his years. School offered little solace. Jim's attention drifted, drawn irresistibly to sound, and teachers found him inattentive, distracted by melodies only he could perceive. At home, The absence of maternal warmth left a void that he tried to fill with music, often retreating to quiet corners, inventing tunes that told stories no one else could hear. Despite these hardships, or perhaps because of them, his musical instincts deepened. The blues, the jazz, and the emerging rock and roll around him became his teachers, shaping a young mind attuned to rhythm, emotion, and improvisation. The streets of Seattle offered lessons in resilience and adversity. Jimmy observed life carefully, the hardships, the injustices, and the fleeting moments of beauty. He witnessed both the cruelty and the kindness of the world, and he distilled these experiences into music. By adolescence, he was performing small gigs in local clubs and bars, absorbing the craft of seasoned musicians. Each performance honed his skill, but it was more than practice. It was a process of self-discovery, a way to communicate the raw intensity of his experiences. The boy who had once struggled with a borrowed guitar now commanded attention. Even if his audience was modest and the room's dimly lit dot in 1961, Hendrix enlisted in the U.S. Army, a choice that brought structure but also frustration. The rigid discipline of military life contrasted starkly with the freedom of musical exploration he craved. Yet even in the uniform, he found ways to connect with sound, tinkering with instruments, studying rhythms, and dreaming of a life in which music would dominate every waking thought. Discharged after a short period, he returned to civilian life with a renewed focus, determined to carve out a name for himself, a sound that would be unmistakably his own. New York City became a crucible for Jimmy's burgeoning genius. Greenwich Village, alive with folk, jazz, and blues, became his stage for experimentation. He collaborated with established artists, observed the techniques of masters, and absorbed influences from every corner of the city. Yet it was not an imitation. Of Jimmy's genius lay in transformation. He internalized styles and reinvented them, blending elements from multiple genres into a sound entirely new, unpredictable, and hauntingly beautiful. His guitar was no longer an instrument. It was a voice, a storyteller, a conduit of emotion that transcended ordinary boundaries. By 1965, Jimmy had begun performing under his own name, captivating audiences not only with technical brilliance, but also with showmanship that bordered on the mystical. He flipped guitars behind his back, played with his teeth, and bent notes in ways that seemed to defy physical possibility. Witnesses described a sense of being transported, as if the music itself carried them away, leaving the confines of reality behind. Yet, behind the spectacle, there was tension, a relentless drive that consumed him, pushing him to explore further, to innovate at the edge of exhaustion, and to confront demons that few could comprehend. Substance use began to creep into his life, subtle at first, then insidious. Alcohol, stimulants, and hallucinogens became tools and temptations, both amplifying his creativity and threatening his stability. Friends and collaborators noted his erratic behavior, periods of intense brilliance followed by withdrawal, moments of playful charm supplanted by bouts of introspection or paranoia. The boundary between inspiration and obsession blurred, creating a life simultaneously luminous and precarious. Hendrix's breakthrough came in 1967 at the Monterey Pop Festival, an event that would solidify his place in history. The world witnessed not just a musician but an elemental force, a man whose performance seemed to channel something larger than himself. Guitar flames, sonic experimentation, and theatrical gestures captivated audiences, leaving them spellbound. Critics and fans alike were struck by the intensity, the emotion, and the innovation. Yet beneath the applause, there were shadows, rumors of exhaustion, the strain of relentless touring, and the growing influence of substances that would later contribute to his untimely demise. Even at the height of fame, Jimmy's personal life was turbulent. Relationships were intense, often fleeting, marked by passion and volatility. Lovers spoke of charm and brilliance, but also of fragility and unpredictability. His sensitivity, which fueled his genius, also left him vulnerable. Friends worried, journalists speculated, and the public was captivated by both the artistry and the mystery surrounding him. Everywhere he went, the narrative followed. Prodigy, innovator, risk-taker, haunted genius. Hendrix's music continued to evolve, pushing boundaries in both live performance and studio experimentation. He blended feedback, distortion, and unconventional techniques, creating a soundscape that was simultaneously raw and otherworldly. Songs like Purple Haze, The Wind Cries Mary, and Voodoo Child demonstrated an intuitive mastery of tone, rhythm, and emotion. Each performance was unpredictable, a living expression of his inner turmoil and transcendent creativity. Fans reported being transported, feeling the music reach into corners of consciousness that words could never touch. Yet even amidst brilliance, the shadows of mortality and obsession loomed. Friends recalled moments when Hendrix spoke of fate, of feeling watched, of a sense of inevitability that he could neither escape nor fully understand. There was a mystical quality to his persona, as if the guitar, the music, and the stage were conduits for forces beyond human comprehension. These qualities amplified both admiration and concern. He was a man touched by genius, yet vulnerable to the darkness that often accompanies it. By 1968, Jimi Hendrix had become an international sensation, a figure whose very presence electrified stages and captivated audiences worldwide. London, New York, Paris, no city was untouched by his meteoric rise. The world had not just embraced a musician, but a revolutionary, a man who reshaped rock, blues, and soul with a single guitar. His performances became legendary spectacles. Guitars ablaze, feedback wailing like a living creature, fingers moving at impossible speeds, eyes closed in transcendence as if channeling unseen forces. Audiences were mesmerized, critics baffled, and fellow musicians simultaneously inspired and intimidated. Yet the dazzling lights of fame cast long shadows. Hendrix's life offstage became a turbulent storm, fueled by relentless touring, public scrutiny, and an ever-increasing dependence on drugs and alcohol. Friends observed a restless energy in him, a drive to push boundaries, to experiment with new sounds, yet also an underlying fragility. His creativity and chaos were inseparable. The genius that enchanted millions was also the force that threatened his stability. Each new city, each performance seemed to demand more of him, and he delivered, often at the cost of his own health. Relationships became complicated by his lifestyle. Women were drawn to his charisma and mystique, yet intimacy was often fleeting, overshadowed by his obsession with music and the pressures of fame. Friends and bandmates struggled to maintain a connection, frustrated by his unpredictable moods, sudden disappearances, and obsessive focus on perfection. Even those closest to him felt the tension between admiration and fear, recognizing that Hendrix was a man constantly straddling the line between brilliance and self-destruction. In 1969, the pace intensified. Hendrix embarked on tours across the United States and Europe, each performance a testament to his virtuosity, yet each leaving him more exhausted and vulnerable. Accounts from this period describe his restless nights, long drives through unfamiliar cities, and brief, surreal moments of reflection in otherwise chaotic days. His music became more experimental, incorporating new feedback techniques, complex chord structures, and improvisational brilliance. Fans marveled at his ability to reinvent himself continuously, while rumors circulated of a growing instability fueled by pressure, drugs, and the weight of expectation. The social scene around Hendrix was equally intense. Parties, clubs, and private gatherings became arenas of influence and temptation, places where creativity collided with danger. Substance use was pervasive, both a tool for inspiration and a pathway to peril. Friends often recounted nights where Hendrix disappeared, only to return in altered states, sometimes euphoric, sometimes troubled. The tension between genius and vulnerability was palpable. He could captivate a room one moment and seem lost in another. Amidst this whirlwind, whispers of fate and premonition followed him. Hendrix sometimes spoke cryptically of mortality, of the price of brilliance and of forces beyond human comprehension. His fascination with mysticism, unconventional practices, and esoteric philosophies intensified. Some claimed he was seeking insight into his own destiny, while others suggested he was attempting to ward off the inevitable foreshadowing of the tragic events to come. The very air around him seemed charged with a sense of suspense, an unspoken warning that the trajectory of his life was both extraordinary and dangerously fragile. In September 1970, while in London, these forces converged in the most tragic way. Hendrix was found dead in his apartment at the age of 27, his passing sudden, mysterious, and steeped in speculation. Accounts of the circumstances vary. Some suggest accidental asphyxiation due to barbiturates, while others whisper darker possibilities, fueled by his chaotic lifestyle and the pressures surrounding him. Conspiracy theories flourished, yet the undeniable truth remained: one of the most extraordinary musical talents the world had ever known was gone, leaving a void filled with questions, grief, and legend. Even in death, Jimi Hendrix's influence was profound. His recordings, live performances, and the mythos surrounding his life continue to inspire musicians across genres. His ability to blend technical mastery with raw emotion remains unmatched, and the aura of mystery surrounding his passing adds an almost supernatural dimension to his legacy. He became an archetype of the 27 Club, a brilliant, creative soul whose life ended far too soon, leaving behind work that continues to resonate and captivate. The world mourned Jimi Hendrix, yet fascination with his life only deepened in the months and years following his death. Headlines screamed tragedy, while fans clutched their records and live recordings, trying to capture fragments of a genius that had burned so brightly and extinguished so quickly. The circumstances of his passing remain murky, with accounts of accidental overdose mingling with whispered rumors of foul play, sabotage, or the inevitable consequences of a lifestyle teetering on the edge of chaos. The more people speculated, the more Hendrix became a living legend, his story a blend of brilliance and mystery. Friends recall the man who lived in extremes, a figure of paradox. He was humble yet commanding, playful yet brooding, accessible yet enigmatic. His charm drew people in, but his intensity could also push them away. Hendrix's obsession with music and perfection, combined with his experiments with substances, created a tension that was palpable. Those closest to him noted moments of eerie prescience, hints that he understood, on some level, the precariousness of his existence. There was an almost mythic quality to his awareness, as if he danced on the line between life and legend, fully conscious of the price of genius. Hendrix's artistry continued to expand posthumously. Albums released after his death, including unfinished recordings, revealed a mind constantly innovating, pushing boundaries, and exploring sounds no one had dared to imagine. The layers, textures, and improvisational brilliance in these tracks suggested a man unafraid to challenge convention, to reach beyond the known into realms only he could navigate. Musicians, both contemporary and future, studied his techniques, venerated his innovations, and found inspiration in the daring spirit that defined his every note. Yet the shadow of the 27 Club lingered. Jimi's death, like that of Brian Jones before him, reinforced the haunting pattern of extraordinary talent claimed far too early. Fans and scholars debated endlessly. Had he been overwhelmed by the pressures of fame? Was it a tragic accident brought on by excess? Or had some unseen force conspired, shaping the trajectory of his life and death? These questions, unanswered, and perhaps unanswerable, added an enduring layer of suspense to Hendrix's story. It was a narrative that transcended biography, a myth woven from talent, mystery, and the inexorable pull of mortality. Legends grew around Hendrix, fueled by his music and the enigmatic circumstances of his life and death. Stories circulated of late-night recordings, moments of inspiration that seemed to materialize from nowhere, and uncanny occurrences surrounding his presence. Fans reported feeling his energy during performances, even after his passing, as if his spirit lingered within the strings of a guitar or the vibrations of a note. His persona became immortal, a symbol of creativity, risk, and the fragile boundary between brilliance and destruction. As decades passed, Hendrix's influence became universal. His innovations shaped rock, blues, jazz, and even experimental electronic music. Every guitar player who strived to reach beyond technical proficiency into the realm of pure expression owes a debt to him. Yet, alongside admiration, there remained a fascination with the mystery of his life. How a boy from Seattle rose to global stardom, only to vanish at 27, leaving behind echoes of brilliance, unanswered questions, and an aura of the uncanny. Ultimately, Jimi Hendrix embodies the paradox of the 27 Club, a life defined by extraordinary talent, profound creativity, and tragic brevity. His story is a tapestry woven from music, obsession, mysticism, and mortality. It reminds the world that genius can illuminate the human spirit in ways that are timeless. Yet it also underscores the fragility of life, the pressures of fame, and the often perilous intersection of creativity and personal vulnerability. Hendrix's legend persists, not merely as a memory, but as an enduring narrative of suspense, drama, and awe. A story that continues to captivate, inspire, and haunt those who dare to follow the music to its deepest, most mysterious places. The small town of Port Arthur, Texas, in the 1940s was quiet, ordinary, and bound by routines. Into this world, Janis Lyn Joplin was born, a girl whose voice would one day shatter conventions and captivate millions. From the earliest days of her childhood, Janis seemed different, restless, fiery, and unwilling to conform. She was drawn to music in a way that seemed instinctive, a force beyond choice. Hymns in church, blues on the radio, and the soulful lamentations of folk singers became the soundtrack of her youth, resonating deeply in a heart already tuned to emotion and intensity. Growing up, Janis struggled with feelings of isolation. She was often considered eccentric by classmates, a young woman whose energy and individuality did not fit neatly into the expectations of her small-town peers. Yet, in her voice, there was power, clarity, and an emotional depth that belied her years. She sang in school performances, local events, and anywhere that would allow her expression, drawing attention and admiration, but also sometimes envy. Her early life was a mixture of rebellion and longing for a push against boundaries. While searching for a place where she truly belonged, by her teens, Janis had discovered blues and jazz, genres that spoke to her soul. Artists like Bessie Smith, Lee Belly, and Big Mama Thornton became mentors in spirit, guiding her through the complexities of emotion, rhythm, and storytelling. She immersed herself in music, practicing tirelessly, experimenting with phrasing, vocal intensity, and stage presence. Her voice evolved into something unique, a combination of raw power, vulnerability, and a rasp that could both wound and mesmerize. College years brought further tension. Janis enrolled in Lamar University, but found the environment stifling. The rigidity of academia clashed with her free spirit. She began exploring the counterculture, traveling, meeting musicians, and delving deeper into the blues. Her experiences on the road and in small clubs began shaping her persona. Fearless, unapologetic, and determined to express her truth through music. Those who met her at this time often remarked on her intensity, her laughter, her tears, and the sense that she carried storms within her, waiting to erupt onto the stage. By the mid-1960s, Janis had moved to San Francisco, a city alive with countercultural energy, psychedelic experimentation, and musical revolution. She quickly became part of the scene, performing at clubs and parties, captivating audiences with her emotional honesty and electrifying stage presence. She was relentless in pursuit of perfection, often demanding the utmost from herself and those around her. Her performances were unpredictable, fiery one night, tender the next, but always raw, compelling, and unforgettable. The pressures of her meteoric rise were immense. Fame, touring, substance use, and personal demons intertwined into a volatile mix. Friends and collaborators observed her oscillation between exuberance and despair. Some evenings, she could enthrall a room with unparalleled energy. Other nights, she withdrew, lost in introspection. Brian Jones's mysterious death marked the first dark chapter of what we now call the 27 Club. His story leaves us with more questions than answers. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to join me again as we uncover more haunting mysteries of the stars.